Welcome to my channel, House of Leo. Today I'm going to show you how to do a simple granny square with colour changes. Now this video is going to be for absolute beginners, so I will be going slow. If you already know how to do a granny square, this video might not be for you. But if you're an absolute beginner and you're not sure how to change colour on each row, then this video is for you. Here's some examples. Some squares I've made, and this is a bag that I've made. Each of these have 3 colours alternating, but you can do any colours you like. You can do a different colour on each row, which is what I might do now to demonstrate. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows for you. So let's get started. So I've chosen my first colour. What we're going to do is create a slip knot. So you create a loop, put your hook through the loop and pull your yarn through, and you can see it's created a knot, and as you pull both ends that knot tightens, but it's still quite loose on your hook, so I am going to tighten it on the hook so it moves up and down easily, but it's not so loose it moves on its own. Next we are going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you want to take your chain and take your hook and pop it back through the very first chain you made. You can see that's created a loop. Yarn over and pull your yarn through both of those. There you have created your ring that you're going to work into. We're now going to chain 2. 1, 2. Working into this ring that you've created, going over your tail end. I'll show you what I mean by that now. If you just hold that in your fingers, yarn over, through the ring you've created, pull it back up through. You will have 3 loops on your hook. You go through both of those. You now have 2 loops on your hook. You yarn over and go through both of those. So counting this first chain you made as our first stitch, you now have 2 stitches in your loop. So we're going to yarn over, go back through. You have 3 on your hook. So this stitch is a UK treble stitch or a US double stitch. You pull through both. You pull through 2 and then you pull through 2. You now have 3 stitches in your centre loop. Granny squares are made up of clusters of 3, so we're going to separate these clusters of 3 with a chain. So we're going to chain 1. Now we're going to do another cluster of 3, so we're going to yarn over, through our loop. You have 3 loops on your hook, go through the first 2, you now have 2 loops on your hook, go through the next 2. I'm going to do 2 more of those, so it's yarn over, through your loop, pull it back through. You have 3 loops on your hook, go through the first 2, you have 2 loops on your hook, go through your next 2. So you have your first cluster of 3 with your chain, and now 2 stitches, so we need to do that again. Yarn over, through, go through the first 2, go through the next 2. So you now have a cluster of 3, a chain and another cluster of 3, so we need a chain. Now to create a square we need 4 clusters of 3, because obviously 4 sides, 4 corners. So we're going to yarn over, through 2, through 2, yarn over, back through your loop, and as I'm going, as you can see, I am holding this tail end, so we're going over it with every stitch. I'll show you why in a moment. Go through 2, go through 2, yarn over, through, go through 2, go through 2. So if we look, we have our first cluster of 3 with a chain, our next cluster of 3 with a chain, and now we've done another 3. So we chain, and now we're going to do our last cluster of 3. So yarn over, through, yarn over, through the loop, pull it back through, you have 3 on the hook, through 2, through 2, and our last stitch, yarn over, through, pull through 2, pull through 2. We now are going to chain 1. Now, once we've got to this point, we're going to want to close our circle. So I am going to snip my yarn, pull it through, thread our needle, and going through our first stitch that we created from back to front, stitch through there, and you can pull that close, and then we are going back into the stitch, your last stitch you created. Go down at the back there, gently pull that down, and as you pull, you can see that creates what looks like another stitch, so that keeps it nice and tidy. Now on the back of your work, you're going to weave in your ends. So to weave in your ends, you just go in and out, so the stitches don't come undone. You can now snip that off. And as I said before, we stitched over this tail end. The reason we did that is because it carries it around. So if you pull it, you will see now that that actually tightens up the hole in the centre, and you can weave this in, and that's what keeps it nice and tight and tidy in the middle. Some people like to use a magic ring. I don't recommend them. They come undone far too easily, and this looks exactly the same. But you know for a fact, don't forget to go back on yourself, that this won't come undone because it's got a chain inside. I made an entire bag for myself, and after one use, I think about 10 of the squares had come undone. I was really upset. So don't use magic rings. I wouldn't recommend them. So now you've finished your first round. You've got your cluster of 3, chain space, 3, chain space, 3, space, 3, space. These spaces are your corners, so this is where we're going to work into next. So as before, I'm going to create a slip stitch onto my hook. I'm going to put my hook through the chain space, pull the yarn through. You have 2 on your hook, pull through both of those, and that's just attached it on. That doesn't count as a stitch. So we're going to chain 2, 1, 2. This chain will count as your first stitch. So now what we need to do is to create our cluster of 3. We need to do 2 more treble crochets UK or double crochets US into this same corner space. So you now have a cluster of 3 all into this one corner space. This counts as half a corner. So on our first corner, we're doing half a corner. Now we're moving over to our next corner. We're going to yarn over into there. One stitch. Two stitches. Three. So we have our cluster of three all into the same corner. We now chain one, and to make it a full corner we have to put three more into that same space. One, two, three. So this is our first full corner, and you can see where we've made that chain in between the two clusters of three. It has created a corner. So we have half a corner, a full corner. Moving on to our next one, we're going to yarn over, put one, two, three, chain one to create our corner point, and then we're going to put three more back into this corner. One, two, three. So we have three, a chain one which creates the point of the corner, and another three. Moving on to the next one, two, three, chain one, and then our second cluster of three going into that same corner space. One, two, and three. So we now have three completed corners, and we're back to our half corner that we started at the beginning. So to create a full corner we need to do three back into that same space. One, two, three. And like the row before, what we're going to do is chain one as our last stitch. We're going to snip our yarn, pull that through, take your needle, go from back to front through your very first stitch, and then from top of the last stitch down, and weave in your ends. And that is how you create your first, this is your first circle, and then this is your first row with four corners. So you did your half, a full corner, full corner, full corner, and then the second half of your first row. The reason I do it this way is if you always start in the corner, your chain is hidden in the corner. If you start in the middle, your chain will become a seam that you can see really easily, and it really can spoil the look of your squares. So always start in the corner. So I shall weave in my ends and come back and show you the next row. So this next round is slightly different because it is our second row. So we have our first or third row. It's our third row, sorry. So we have our first row, our second row. The second row was only corners. This row we actually have side edges. So we're going to be working into these spaces between the corners as well. But as I said before, we always start in a corner. So into the corner we go. Pull up a loop so you have 2 on your hook, pull that through and then tighten your, that doesn't count, so we're going to do chain 1, 2, counts as our first stitch, yarn over, back into the corner, yarn over, back into the corner. So as our chain counts as our first stitch, this is our first cluster of 3, our half a corner to start with. Then we need to do is put a cluster of 3 in the space between the corners. So we yarn over, pull it through, pull through 2, pull through 2. Stitch number 2 and stitch number 3. Now because this isn't a corner, we don't need to add any more than that. It's just 3 into the side spaces. But this one is a corner. So we're going to do a cluster of 3. We're going to chain 1 and a cluster of 3 back into the corner again. So all the corners are the same. It's always 2 clusters of 3 or 6 stitches with a chain in between. We're now on a side gap again, so we're only putting 3 into there. We've got a corner, side one, and now we're back to another corner. So again we're doing 3 stitches, 2, 3. We're going to chain 1 and 3 more back into the corner. 1, 2, 3. So that's that corner. We're now on another side space, so we only want to put 3 into the side. 1, 2, and 3. Our next corner, so we have 2 clusters of 3 going in here. 1, 2, 3, a chain, 1, 2, and 3. So we have completed 3 corners and 3 sides. So we'll do our last side, which is just 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. And our last corner, which we have already done half of the corner, we're going to add 3 more into there. 1, 2, 3, chain 1, give it a snip, pull that through, from back to front, down, through there, and weave in your ends. So I have my next colour slip knot onto my hook. You have your 3 rows. Choose a corner. When you choose your corner, try not to do the one you've just finished on. If you start on a different corner each time, then that just makes it a bit more secure. So you go into your corner, through your 2, that just secures it on, chain 2, 1, 2, that counts as your first stitch, and then add 2 more stitches into your corner. So you have your half a corner. Now, as you can see on this next row, instead of having 1 side space, there's 2 side spaces. Just remember that every time it's a side, you only put 3 stitches, and every time you get into a corner, you do 3 with a chain and then 3, so 6 stitches total. This will happen for every row. You will get an extra side stitch, and that is how it grows. So for this row we have 2 side stitches, the previous row we had 1 side stitch, the next row will have 3 side stitches, and that's how it grows. So we're going to do 3 stitches into this one, three stitches into the next one. These are side spaces, so they only have 3 stitches in each. And now we've made it to the next corner, so we're going to do 3, chain 1 and 3, all into the same corner. We have 2 side spaces, so we're doing 3 in each of those. Speeding up a little bit now because this video will end up being hours and hours otherwise. 3 into the next side space. And you've made it to your next corner. So again, we're going to do 3, your chain 1, which is the point of your corner, and then 3 again, back into the same corner space. So we have completed 2 full corners and our first one was half a corner. I'm going to continue around until I make it to there. If you want to pause it now to catch up with me, and I'll show you that last corner again. Okay, so I've done 1, 2, 3 full corners. I still have my half a corner here, and I've done my side spaces, so there was 2 side spaces between each corner. So I'm going to do the other half of my first corner. 2, 3, chain 1, snip, pull it through, and weave from back to front through there, from the top of that stitch downwards, and then weave in your ends at the back. So I will continue to weave those in properly, and you have got 4 rows. Always weave in your ends as you go. It's tempting to just leave them till the end, but actually you'll find that you'll thank yourself at the end if you weave them in as you go. It's much easier to see what you're doing. So I'm going to weave those in, and I shall discuss the next rounds with you. So as before, I have my next colour already on my hook with a slip knot, and we're going to start in a corner. Pop it through, pull through both of those, tighten that up, chain 2, yarn over, 1, 2. So that's our half a corner with our 3 stitches including our chain. This row, as I said, so this row had 1 side space, this row had 2 side spaces, this row now has 1, 2, 3 side spaces. So on each row those will grow, so we're going to put a cluster of 3 into each side space. The last one, so that's the 3rd side space with 3 stitches, and we've made it to our corner. I'm going to put 3, chain 1 and 3, all into the same space. There we have our first full corner, our half a corner at the beginning, and 3 groups of 3. As you can see, this creates 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces down the side for your next row. So that's how it grows. It's the sides that grow, but the corners always stay the same. They're always in the same place. And you add 3, chain 3. So I'll continue round, come back to you at the end there. So I've made it round to my last corner where we've just done the half a corner again. I'm going to add 3 more into there. Chain 1, Even the ends as before. I shall weave those in a moment. But this is basically how it works, and you just continue to grow and grow. You can leave it here and make something with this, or you could, you know, grow it to the size of a bed, a double bed. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces on the sides now, and the next row will be 5, the next row will be 6, and that's just how it grows. Every corner stays the same, is in the same place, that you get this nice V shape all the way up from the corners. You can use any colours. These colours here, I've literally got a basket of scraps beside me and I just grabbed whatever colour came out next. So it's probably not the prettiest square, but you can use any colours you like. You can alternate colours. You could do 2 rows of one colour, 1 row of 1, 2, 1. You can, you know, you can really mix and match it and make them your own. I hope this tutorial was useful to you. I've really enjoyed making it for you. I hope it was slow enough. It's very difficult. I don't want these videos to be too long. So yeah, so this is where we're at. Good luck with that. Let me know how you get on. Do leave a comment and let me know how you get on, and if you've made your first multicoloured granny square and you'd love to show me a picture, I would love to see it on Instagram. Please do tag me in your pictures. I really appreciate seeing what you've done. Any links and things for my websites and whatnot, it's all down below in the description. And hopefully see you again soon in my next tutorial.